Welcome to an interview with Melissa Llarena, the podcast for executives who go after what they want with curiosity, creativity, and courage. Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm a career strategist, and I want to help you shift your focus from landing a job at a Fortune 500 company to finally figuring out how you can build your own billion-dollar career. Sounds good? Then keep listening.
Get ready for an incredible conversation with an incredible lady, Beth Comstock. She has an incredible mission-driven career. She served as GE's Vice Chair of Business Innovation and was the CMO. She led efforts to accelerate new growth, develop digital and clean energy futures, seed new businesses, and enhance brand value. As president of integrated media at NBC Universal, Beth oversaw TV ad revenue and new digital efforts, including the early development of Hulu.com. Beth is the director at Nike, trustee of the National Geographic Society, and former board president of the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian National Design Museum. She's been a visiting scholar at Columbia University's Center for Science and Society. She is a graduate of the College of William and Mary with a degree in biology. And her first book is entitled Imagine It Forward, and it's about summoning courage and creativity in the face of change. Enjoy this sneak peek into our conversation. How can an employee today, continue to be passionate and persistent about their professional goals during a moment when people are overwhelmed by business goals?
Yeah, I think that's such a important question that hopefully people are going to take this to heart and ask themselves that question. I think just asking that question. But managers aren't mind readers. I shared an example in the book of this was sort of mid-career, and I was up for I wanted to be up for a promotion. A job had been open 6 months, and they hadn't called me about it. It's one of these classic mistakes, like, why haven't they called me? I'm perfect for this job. And after 6 months, I got frustrated. So I finally got up my nerve. I went to the head of HR. I said, I'd like that job. And he said, yeah, we thought about you, but you're a young mother with young kids, and this job requires a lot of travel. So we thought it wouldn't be right for you. I was so frustrated. And I realized at that moment, I needed to vouch for me. I couldn't wait for them. I needed to say, like, my husband and I figured it, we're good. I got the travel thing going on. And I thought of it since then. I've often thought of how many times I'm quick to make an assumption about somebody. Once upon a time, they expressed they didn't like that, or, oh, they've got this situation, or the kid in high school, or whatever. You always need to ask. You always need to ask. So that if you're a manager, I think you just don't assume. If there's a new opportunity, you want to push someone in a new way, don't assume you know the answer. And then if you're the person who you have real personal and professional goals, you owe it to yourself to let your company, your team know. I mean, within reason, you don't have to tell them everything, but they're not going to know. There's always this trade-off, right? There's certain things that are expected of you to do your job and to fulfill what the company needs. But a good team, a good leader also wants to see you develop. They're there to help you be the best, whatever you are. And so if you feel you're not doing that, hopefully a good leader will help you, but they're not going to know unless you say. So let's just say you decide, I want to invest in writing. I want to invest in presentation skills. I need some quiet time and I'm not getting it. For me I'm an introvert. I am an introvert. I won't sound like it today, but it's hard for me on these Zoom calls. I'm an introvert. I need a little bit of extra time. So if you're okay, I'm not going to participate in that one call. I'm not sure I contribute. I'd like to contribute in this way. So I think you have to have that conversation. It's scary because you're pointing out something that maybe is against the norm, but your manager won't know unless you say that. And a good manager hopefully is spending one-on-one time, not just group time, and asking those kind of questions. But even the best aspiring managers don't often think to do that. So you may have to take the initiative and say to your manager, look, I haven't said this, but this is important to me.
And I think it's important to just kind of mention too that even now in the middle of a pandemic, your professional goals still matter. I mean, I think there's ways that they can be tied to business
Will
goals.
continue. Exactly. And I mean, the fact is, as you said, most people are working harder than they ever have. Yeah, we're doing it in our sweatpants, but we're working incredibly hard. And so you may need things now in a different way than you did in an office structure. Okay, yeah, you don't have to commute. So I got an hour back of my day. Great. I want to be able to do X with it. And there are also things you don't even need to ask your manager for. But make sure you're good with yourself. And I love, Melissa, that you just said, are you asking that question? There's some things maybe you just need to shore it up for yourself. Okay, I know I've got an extra hour for my day. Am I going to give it to my office, or am I going to invest in that poetry that I've been trying to write? Or am I going to spend an extra hour with my kid playing the piano? I think feel the agency, grab the agency, and give yourself permission to do that. That would be my advice.
I think it's important. And I think if anybody needed permission, okay, here, you guys just heard it right now. Beth just gave you permission. So I had a question about just marketers right now in this environment. And the reason why I ask is because from a healthcare perspective, we are looking at rightfully, nurses and doctors and people on the front lines as essential workers. And a lot of marketers right now who have been let go or furloughed, they don't feel quite as essential. And a lot of them felt like they gave a lot of their life to their employers, but they were let go. So my question to you is, how can someone who's in that situation like reimagine for themselves their value as a marketer?
Yeah. Well, I have kind of three ways to answer that. First is, as every marketer knows, what's your unique value proposition. It's hard to do for yourself. It's much easier to do for a product or something else. So spend some time. Have people you trust give you feedback. What's your unique value? Be very clear about it so you can articulate, if to nobody else but yourself. Maybe there's a mismatch of what you can do well and what you're looking for, or what the company thinks you're good at. So that's where the second thing, and I only realized this when I left a big company, is I love my fluid life now. I love my portfolio life where I've got a good mixture of business projects and personal projects. I would have been to do that before, and now I've been sort of forced to do it. So I do think the workplace is much more fluid now. I think it means you have to be a bit more entrepreneurial. That may not be for everybody, but I do think this idea of having a portfolio of projects, maybe that seems scary to you, but challenge yourself. How might I think about that? I think the world is going there in a much more interesting way. So I think that's something to embrace if you think that sounds like something to do. And then I forgot what I was going to say on the third thing. Anyway, I had a third point, but I lost it.
I think what you're saying reminds me of like being in college and having electives and just maybe starting from that point. Like if you could take any class back in college, which ones would you have taken? And for you, I mean, journalism was, your major. And then now I've heard in other interviews that you've taken on art. And you have all these other interests. And so just thinking about the interests that you may have not had time for in the past is a starting
and what they open up. And I guess I remember my third point I wanted to say to your question is, I think marketers are essential. And this is back to kind of needing your unique value, but put it in the context of being a marketer, not just you personally. I love that Peter Drucker quote, like Peter Drucker, the business thinker from the 50s. Without a customer, there is no business. So I always felt marketers' role was to help grab those market and customer insights and bring them in a way into the company in a way they can use them. You mean to tell me your company doesn't need that? And so is there a way, and maybe it's just a mismatch. If the company thinks they don't need that, trust me, there's a better company for you that's going to appreciate that they need that. But again, it's back to that market. I always believe marketing's job was to live in the market and to be a voice of what's happening, where the world's going, what the trends and insights are. So is there a way to bring that and harness that? Because I don't think that goes away. I think that is essential. And maybe it's just a mismatch of the kind of company and what you can do.
I love that. And I think a lot of the people that have been affected also, given, the point that you mentioned earlier, just working from home and then now also teaching your kids school stuff at home, are working moms. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to just have that conversation to tie up, what we've just explored, which is, as a people leader, I'm just curious, Beth, do you think that being a mom helped you be a better people leader?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. In so many ways. I mean, I think I just matured as a mom. I understood patience and things that don't come naturally to me that were required. And frankly, I think sometimes I realized that my kids were more mature than my colleagues. And, you have to have a laugh about that. So a sense of humor sometimes, but the ability to balance and juggle a lot of things. I think every mom knows that. My kids are grown. I think if my kids were young and I were at work in a company right now, I would be struggling. I have real empathy. And partly it's just, you can't do it all. You just can't. And so some things you're going to have to prioritize and just say, I can't do that. That's hard. It's hard for me to say no. I say that as if I would have done really well with that. I wouldn't have. I would have asked for help more. And that was really hard for me. I think now I'm more mature in a lot of ways. I think that's something I had to learn at home and at work, to ask for help. I thought I had to have all the answers. I had to have finished everything perfectly. And maybe I didn't ask my kids for help, my husband for help, my colleagues for help. In fact, I got some really tough feedback mid-career from my colleagues saying, you don't ask for help. You come in with all the ideas and you don't ask us for any help. Like, we're wondering why we're here. And they gave me really tough feedback. I wonder if my family had had the opportunity, if they might not have given me the same feedback, but I just didn't ask of them. And I should have.
And I think that's really important. And I think in terms of your book, definitely it provides guidance, along every point that we just discussed, whether you're a working mom or working dad or someone who is looking to really up level their career. I think books are great resources and one way of kind of getting some help. And then of course, mentors and coaches and sparks and all these other, it's like a cornucopia of options. There's really so many options as far as where you could get your resources and help
Well,
from.
as a coach, I think also just asking somebody, can I have 10 minutes? Maybe there's a colleague you have who's also a mom and you're like, how are you doing this? Are you caring about this? What do you, if there's somebody you feel comfortable. So coaching can come in a lot of forms. It doesn't have to be something super formal. Who has time to read books? Not many of us. I like a lot of audiobooks. I do it when I'm working out. I do it when I'm cooking. That's one of the things, like sort of my cooking dinner is like my sacred space. So I can find 20 minutes while I'm whipping something up and listen to an audiobook. So, just kind of rebalance yourself a little bit if you can. And look, it may not be the right time to do some of these things. Maybe you just say, for the next 6 months, I'm just like focused on getting my kids' schoolwork done, getting dinner on the table, and get what I have to do for my job. And that's it. And that's okay.
Yeah. Giving yourself that permission, back to the permission slip,
Yeah.
right? Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I stopped painting when I was 13 and I just picked up a paintbrush when I was 58. So there you go.
Join us on melissallarena.com/podcast to hear this entire interview. You never know how hearing about someone else's journey can impact your own.